All right, everybody, we are now joined by Angela McArdle. She's the current chair of the Libertarian Party, and she is the main organizer behind this weekend's events in Washington, D.C., Rage Against the War Machine and Rescue the Republic on the 28th and 29th of September, this Saturday and Sunday. Angela, pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Very nice to meet you. And for anyone who doesn't know, I am a speaker on the one day, and I am pressed the next day. I'm going to do the Superman Clark Kent thing. I'm going to put on glasses the next day, so nobody recognizes me from the first day.
And a cape the first day.
Yes. Not all heroes wear capes. Okay, so we were talking a little before we went on. A lot of our listeners are not libertarians. They probably don't know a lot about the finer details of the Libertarian Party. I know there was kind of a civil war. You represent the winning party, shall we say, the Mises Caucus in 2022. You became the chairperson of the party after a kind of long struggle to knock out the old guard. Can you explain a little about that? Who is the Mises Caucus? What do you believe? What distinguishes you from the people you displaced, and what went down there?
Sure. I think this is probably something that your listeners are going to understand, and they'll feel the pain with me. So I'm part of the evil takeover. You know, we orchestrated a takeover of what a lot of people view as the wing of the party that is more culturally conservative. The paradox there is that we're also the wing of the party that does outreach and issue coalition work with the left. So it's very interesting, you know, it's that everybody thinks, all the neoliberals hate us. That's kind of where we're at. We are not officially associated with, but big fans of the Mises Institute. We're all about Austrian economics. We are very hardcore in favor of pro-free speech. We're anti-tech censorship. We like all of that really good stuff. And, we want to be outspoken and unapologetic in our anti-war messaging and, in our, hatred of the deep state and our love for all the things that we think makes the Western world and America, so amazing. And we took over the party in 2022. I was reelected in 2024 at our national convention. And here I am today. We're known for also being the driving force behind Rage Against the War Machine on the quote unquote right side. We worked with Nick Brana and the People's Party as the dissident left. And that's a real passion point, a passion project of ours at the Libertarian Party.
All right. So that's some background. Now, you are still the chair of the party as a Mises member. We know, of course, Chase Oliver, the current presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party, is not a Mises member. And after your convention, you put out this statement regarding presidential endorsements.
People think I'm going to endorse Donald Trump. Well, I'm not. I haven't endorsed Donald Trump, but he has endorsed us. Donald Trump said he's going to put a libertarian in a cabinet position. He came out and spoke to us. He said he's a libertarian. He has basically endorsed us. And so in return, I endorse Chase Oliver as the best way to beat Joe Biden. Get in, loser. We are stopping Biden. I think we got to do everything we can to kick Joe Biden's ass. And one of the best ways to do that is to support Chase Oliver and go hard in the paint for him in blue states. I know. It's like a total clown show thing. Well, I'm 100% here for that clown show.
Okay, so
you are willing to do prop comedy for the cause.
Yeah, there you go. That's commitment.
You got to do it for the cause, man.
You go on to say in that video, it was a longer video, obviously. I took that from a tweet that had some of the key parts. But you go on to say that basically your strategy is to boost Chase Oliver in blue states to try and organize a protest vote from the left for Chase Oliver against Joe Biden at the time. That was recorded the week after your convention. At the time, Joe Biden was the presumptive nominee. Now it's obviously Kamala. But it seems like your strategy there was to boost the libertarian ticket in the blue states, but stay out of Trump's way in the red states or the swing states, with the ultimate goal of defeating the Democratic ticket Is that the strategy of the Libertarians this cycle? At least what you would like it to be, and how do these rallies this weekend fit into that electoral strategy, if at all, or are they just cause oriented?
Well, the campaign and the National Party are two totally separate organizations.
Sure. Yep.
And I know that Chase Oliver and Mike Tremont are campaigning in all 50 states, red, blue, swing state, whatever. They're all in. I, at the National Party, have limited resources. So my goal was to focus my, outreach, whether it's billboard campaigns, geo-targeted advertisements, just connecting with voters in any way that I could in blue states and maybe swing states too, to really make the Biden-Harris ticket, now it's the Harris-Walz ticket, feel as much pain as possible. And I am still doing that. And I have to say it is immensely enjoyable. I love it. Also, you may have heard, there was a little bit of fallout in the party. It was a real black swan event to elect me and also
Right.
Chase Oliver.
Right.
Chase Oliver has been invited to speak at Rage Against the War Machine. His campaign's not going to be able to make it. I don't think it's really his style. And that's okay. Everybody has different things that they want to do and different ways that they want to message. But it was a really strange thing that happened. It took 7 rounds of voting, right? I need a way to bring the party together and have people on board and not so angry that their preferred presidential candidate didn't get elected, selected, nominated. So this was my way of doing it. It's not just about, trying to be a fixer for Trump or a spoiler for Kamala. It's like, what election strategy can I pull together that's going to help this really divided party, hold it together through the election season? And that was the best way to do it.
So when you say that you have a sort of swing state strategy to cause Kamala and Tim Walz as much pain as possible, is your theory there that because Chase Oliver is more socially liberal than the Mises wing of the party, that he will pull more votes from Kamala than from Trump?
He does. Absolutely, he does. I would say he's much more culturally on the left, and he also tends to signal more to the left than the right. And so we're just really boosting him with what he's already doing.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Russell.
All right. So AIPAC has been very openly buying politicians on both sides of the aisle.
Yes.
Now, Trump just went on stage and very remarkably described being bought. So we have some video. So we'll throw that up and talk about it.
We're going to take back our country, and we're going to make Israel great again, and we're going to make America great again. We're going to make them both great again, greater than ever before. I am the best defender you've had as president by far. I think there'd be no question. Miriam mentioned 4 or 5 of the things. Those each individual thing. Oh, her husband would drive me crazy. You have to do this. You have to do that. You don't know what I had to put up with. She was like the calming influence. I said, Sheldon, I can't do that. It's too much. He said, no. And every time I got something, he'd immediately start with something else, right? You just had a big victory. Let's celebrate. No, we have to immediately start. Let's see if we can do Golan Heights. How about Golan Heights? They've been trying to get it for 72 years. I got it done in about 15 minutes, okay?
So just for viewer reference, obviously Sheldon and Miriam are the Adelsons. Sheldon passed away a few years back. Miriam, his wife, is still alive, his widow now, and they have donated a lot of money to Trump's campaign. So go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, so Trump just basically went on stage and did a stand-up routine describing himself being bribed. Are there any anti-war choices in this election?
I'd say that Chase Oliver is an outspoken anti-war candidate. Absolutely. And if there are people on the left who do not want to vote for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump because of Israel, I would say Chase Oliver is right up there with Jill Stein on being outspoken and very anti-war.
Okay. All right. So Rage Against the War Machine, which again, I will be one of the speakers there. This has been, I remember first hearing about it when you first did it. It was always a lightning rod for
Yes.
controversy. You always had
Yes.
people saying, well, I'm not going on stage with that person. And if that person is there, I can't be there. And probably never more so than this year, because when you guys started, it was just Ukraine.
Yep.
And now you have Israel. So
Yep.
now you have people who are against the war in Ukraine, but are in some cases fanatically Zionist.
The glass
How
parking lot crowd.
how do you make that work?
We are not
What does that refer to?
Uh,
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
The glass-
what is that? What is
the
that?
glass parking lot crowd, the people who want to see Palestine turned into a glass parking lot. Yeah, I call them the
yes.
glass parking lot people.
Is there going to
All
be a
right.
tent for them at the event that Russell should go? The glass parking lot caucus.
We want them at the event. And let me tell you, here's why. It is really fun to go to these anti-war events and rallies and meet other people who are like-minded and outspoken on war. But I'm not holding an anti-war rally to reach out to people who agree with me. There are going to be thousands, maybe 40, 50,000 people at Rescue the Republic the next day. Most of them are very, very opposed to war in Ukraine. I would say 50% of them are very opposed to United States involvement in the war in Israel, or, to what Israel is doing in Gaza. Just, it's a 50-50 thing. We want to get as many of those people as possible attending Rage Against the War Machine and do outreach to them, because they've not heard the message. All they hear are things, and some of them are people that I care about and I agree with in other areas, but they hear messages like, we need Israel, Israel is the one defending our freedoms in the Middle East and holding back terror. And that's all they've ever heard. And so we've got to expose them to this message. And I know, it's like, oh, I don't want to be on the stage with that conservative guy, or I don't want to. You should, because this is how we're going to reel the rest of them in. We have to have a strategy if we want to actually affect meaningful change. And believe me, we have a really good opportunity, because there are also going to be people in attendance who are connected to the Trump campaign. And maybe you think okay, well, he got on stage in front of a bunch of Israeli flags. We can never change anything. If we're able to get an influence, and I have a good relationship with the Trump campaign, if we're able to influence it just a tiny, tiny bit, let's say that we change their mind on 2 drone strikes in 4 years. Maybe we could save 800 people's lives. Does it make a difference? I think it makes a huge difference to the people whose lives we've saved. It makes an incredible difference. And if we just get a tiny little foothold in that administration, just a tiny little bit, we could totally take over the federal government in 3 or 4 administrations. The neocons, they didn't used to be in charge of anything. They were a fringe freak show think tank. And that's what did it for them. They got in, they got a little bit of help from the CIA and William F. Buckley, I think. Just a little foothold, and they took the whole thing over. So maybe we can just Uno reverse card them, get in, not be a total piece of crap, recommend hey, how about we don't murder people and bomb weddings? And maybe things will change. That's what I'm here for.
Would that strategy not apply to a Harris-Walz administration either? My question is how much more receptive, and for the record, we support neither ticket here.
Sure.
If we could vote for Jill Stein, we would. She's not on the ballot in our state. I may write her in. But that to me doesn't sound so much like an argument to support the Trump campaign on the hopes that we can, convince them to call off 2 drone strikes over the course of 4 years.
Well, that's not what I'm not here to advocate that everybody vote.
No,
Donald
I understand
Trump.
that,
Yeah.
but I'm just, go ahead.
So, let's talk about it. It's a strange paradox. I think that on the one side, you have Harris and her regime, the deep state, who are very, very pro blow everything up in the Middle East, export democracy at the end of a tank. And all of their supporters, well, not all, a good chunk of their supporters are very vocally anti-war. There are people who will fall in line and begrudgingly, they'll hold their nose and they'll vote Kamala Harris because they're oh, I hate Donald Trump. I hate capitalism. I hate this and that. That's how it breaks down. And on the other side of the ticket, you have Donald Trump, who's actually been on the record criticizing Netanyahu, right? And who is very anti-deep state right now. And he may not fully understand what that means, but in his mind, he's anti-deep state because they just tried to murder him twice. All of his supporters are glass parking lot people. It's a strange paradox. They're totally mismatched. Right. But I think that Donald Trump is going to be more open to those ideas, because it's hey, I'm the one who's saying, don't murder people. Remember when people tried to murder you? That sucked. That's happening over in the Middle East. He just seems more open. He just seems more open to ideas and more of an outsider, whereas Kamala is like a mouthpiece for the deep state, hardcore ideologue. She will do whatever those freaking swamp creatures, Pentagon people tell her to do.
Okay, but I mean, we just showed the clip of Donald Trump basically saying he'll do whatever Miriam Adelson tells him to do, and that he would do whatever Sheldon Adelson told him to do. So I guess my question is, look, I was very supportive of the first Rage Against the War Machine rally. Russell is obviously speaking at this one, so we're not here to trash the event, obviously. Russell wouldn't be going to D.C. and speaking there if that's what we were planning to do. But it does seem like what you're saying is that electing Trump is a prerequisite for enacting this kind of change. That's what it seems like.
I don't think it's a prerequisite. I think it's a better chance than the other, but it's not a prerequisite.
Okay.
You've got to have like multiple strategies and people attacking from different angles, and I just am representing one way to do it.
All right. So it sounds like you're kind of presenting the argument a lot of people are making about at least the Rescue the Republic side of this in reverse. A lot of people are seeing it as essentially a Trump event, as a stealth way to draw anti-war people into supporting Trump. And one of the reasons they feel that way is the website, which we have that here. So there is an image there of Trump leading people across the Potomac, right?
Is that Washington crosses the Delaware or whatever?
That is Washington crosses the Delaware. It is Lady Liberty leading the charge. He is in the boat. It is Lady Liberty.
Yeah, I mean, he's at the front of the boat.
Well, he was rumored to have
okay.
to be a speaker, and I don't think that's going to happen right now since people keep trying to kill him when he goes in public. But he was rumored to have been in attendance.
All right.
Okay. So you're saying they worked up this graphic in the assumption / hope that Trump would be a speaker?
Yeah, he was coming unofficially, and then, understandable. We don't want anyone being we don't want any assassination attempts at our event.
Was Elon Musk going to be there?
I didn't have any confirmation from him.
Okay. So iconography like that, and I know that this isn't, I mean, you have two partners on this event, right? Does not
yes,
exclusively
I do. Yeah,
your
it's
event.
not just me. Yeah.
It does convey the impression that this is a Trump rally, that essentially it's a Trump rally. And doesn't that, because it sounds like glass parking lot, it doesn't sound like you support the war in Gaza, in addition to the war in Ukraine. But doesn't it give the impression that the anti-war position is a Trump position? And isn't that going to scare off a lot of the people that it sounds like you're really interested in coalition building? We listened to the other night, you had a talk with a lot of the participants. Our friend Jimmy was on that, and things were about to kind of get a little tense with him and Weinstein. And we noticed that you jumped right in there. You did not want this whole thing over Israel to derail the coming together. It seems like that's your main focus, bring everybody together.
I do want to bring people together. I want to bring people together on areas of agreement. I want to win people over on other areas where we don't agree. I just think that if anti-war is your most important issue, it behooves you to try to persuade people and not just shout them down as like blood-sucking Zionists. And I mean, there are some really horrific people who, want to see some horrific things happen to the people in Palestine. That is not what I'm about. I want to persuade as many people as possible. I think that is the right thing to do. It's the smart move strategically, is we got to win them over.
Okay. All right. So now, have you gotten pushback from some of the because it sounds like you're pretty strongly against the war in Gaza. Have you gotten pushback from any of the people that you're working on this with?
No, actually. No, I have not. I have not gotten any pushback. I think people understand that my approach is very unifying, and like I don't do the hard sell with people. I don't browbeat them. I do things like I try to give everybody a Scott Horton book. Like I try to do things like that. I'm like, let me give you this. Oh, did you know that they also killed Justin Amash's baby cousin George? Here's a photo of it. Oh, but we could stop that. Like things like that. Like I try to hit them with like a gift and then like emotional appeal wrapped up with facts, that kind of stuff. And people tend to receive it really well. I think they also believe that I'm sincere. Like I take a lot of great risks to do this too. People are flipping out. I've always got haters in the Libertarian Party who are like, you can't work with leftists, you can't work with communists. And I'm like, you are literally a neoliberal shilling for the federal government to send money to Ukraine. I will work. Why is it so much easier for me to work with literal communists than some of the members of my own party? It's very fascinating. Probably because the communists are ironically not feds and some of the LP members are. But it's just like people see me take risks like that and try to reach out and work with people who are different. And I think that they know I'm sincere. And so like the good people don't want to give me a hard time.
All right. So it sounds like it doesn't surprise me that you're working with the communists, because the communists were among the people in our audience who were able to give us some insight into the Mises caucus. They were very aware of you and the caucus and what you guys do. What can we really do to affect the deep state and this power structure? And I must ask, with Donald Trump, especially given that you're coming from a party and a caucus that is famously anti-state, is Trump really an accelerationist tool? Is it really, well, Trump is just going to fuck it up so bad that it'll collapse the state? Like, is that part of the thinking?
I don't know if it'll collapse the whole thing. I think it's going to collapse. It might be a domino effect. I don't think it'll be the whole thing. He's promised us that he'd abolish the Department of Education. He's made us a handful of promises. If he just sticks on one, it'll be the biggest libertarian advancement at the federal level that's ever happened. All it takes is one. If he'll free Ross Ulbricht, our political prisoner, the whole thing will be worth it, right? How do we affect change? Like, you have to get a position and leverage it to the maximum, fullest extent possible. I took a lot of heat for meeting with him at Mar-a-Lago, talking to him. When I went down there, I had two asks, just two. And it didn't have anything to do like immediately with the party. I mean, he wanted to speak at our convention. I was like, can you please free Ross Ulbricht? Picture of his mother. Can you please free Julian Assange? And Ross Ulbricht was a yes, and Julian Assange was a maybe. And I sat there and had an argument with people at the, not an argument, a debate with people at the table around him about whether or not Julian Assange should be free. And I was surprised by the people who advocated on his behalf and said, yes, you need to free him. And it was like a maybe, and then we had him at the convention, and he said, I set him up with an interview with Tim Pool, and Tim Pool asked him, he pressed him on it, but in a respectful way, like, will you free Julian Assange? And he was like, I'm thinking about it. I'm considering it. 2 weeks later, Biden finally, the DOJ finally lets him go after tweeting clips of our national convention. The Harris Biden is watching. They know which way the swing vote is going right now. And they're trying to catch up. So I was like, this is amazing. Having Julian Assange freed as a political tactic, like, okay, free everyone to get our votes. Like, that's a great thing that's happening. So, we just got to keep on doing stuff like that.
Did you invite Jill Stein?
Yes, I did. I have not heard back from Jill. I would love Jill to speak at Rage Against the War Machine again. I also invited Dennis Kucinich and Colonel Ann Wright. I know that Ann is not going to be able to make it. I think she had a prior commitment. But I'm hoping, there's still a chance that Dennis can make it. We did also invite Cornel West. It is election season. And so, I get, you're campaigning, especially Dennis being in Ohio, which is a swing state.
Right. So you're talking about, those were invitees to Rage Against War, right?
Yes.
And then because Rescue the Republic seems broader in terms of the causes that it's advocating for, and obviously the framing of that is that it's to restore certain values that the site describes as Western values that have sort of been degraded over the past
Yes.
several years. And so, because of the sort of broadness of that, I would say it wouldn't surprise me if someone like Jill Stein wouldn't go there. But you're saying she was invited to Rage Against War.
Yeah,
right.
she was invited to
First
Rage Against the War
Excuse me,
Machine.
I'm sorry.
I also invited her to our national convention since there were so many presidential candidates converging. Again, she was collecting signatures to get on the ballot in New York, which is an insurmountable task.
Right. So I guess my
New
question
Yorkers
would be,
go.
what would be the overarching theme of Rescue the Republic? Obviously, Russ is speaking at Rage Against the War Machine. That's pretty self-explanatory. In terms of Rescue the Republic, what would you say is the sort of thematic sort of glue to bind together all the speakers and theoretically the audience members as well?
Sure. I mean, there are 8 pillars, right? It's anti-censorship. It's pro-medical freedom. It's pro-free speech. It's pro-family sovereignty. It is what we think of as Western values. The way that I put it is, it's like the parable of 2 wolves inside you. The West has 2 wolves fighting. One is pro-free speech. One is consent of the governed. One is that same one is like pro-medical freedom. And the other wolf, what is it? Wars for empire, the totalitarianism, censorship and surveillance. Which wolf wins? Well, the one you feed. And we want to feed the good one. And that's what Rescue the Republic is about. And we made it, I wanted all of the pillars of that movement to be libertarian, things that I could show libertarians, people in my party, and be like, I'm building this thing. And like, you're going to agree with probably all 8 of them. And if not, 7 out of 8, right? Like, you can be on board with it. I'm doing my duty as like chair of a political party, but it's also broad enough that people from the dissident left, they could agree with it too. Some right wingers, they'll agree with it, maybe not neocons, but that's okay. Look, we're trying to rescue it from them, not bring them along.
All right.
Yeah.
So
if I could just interject one thing. So
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
guess like one of the sort of inconsistencies, and this isn't an inconsistency for you, as you've made pretty clear your stance on Israel, Gaza, and Russia, Ukraine, and it seems like you're more or less where we are on that. But in terms of the framing of the sort of restoring of Western values and to sort of make sure that the West sort of continues to stand for the kind of liberalism, broadly speaking, that it's known to represent. The Russia-Ukraine war, I think we would all agree here, and I would assume, looking at the guest list here, at the speaker list, almost everyone on that stage for Rescue the Republic would agree that the Russia-Ukraine war was really instigated by the West and NATO and the sort of encroachment of Western values into the East, which then prompts a provoked response by the Russians. But then on the Israel-Gaza front, I think a lot of people on this speaker list are pro-Israel because they see Israel as a beacon of Western values.
Yes,
right.
I think that's
and
right.
So there seems to be an inconsistency there. Like I said, you're not responsible for reconciling that. That's a question I would ask, Tulsi Gabbard, for example, not necessarily you. But it is just an observation that I had, and I would like to maybe get your opinion on that. Not that you have to speak for these people, obviously.
I want to bring them all the way there. Like, I want to close those gaps. I think it's really important that we do. If someone says that they're on board with ending forever wars, I say, yes, that's awesome. Now, let's actually do it. And that means we should stop funding war in the Middle East. And, people will be like, oh, yes. And I'll be like, okay, great. And that also includes foreign aid to Israel. And that's where people are like, we gotta help them along.
So who on the stage is going to help them along? I mean, we got some people there. Obviously, our friend Jimmy is an anti-Zionist guy, but yeah, I mean, I just hope that I hope that voice is heard there, because the speaker list does seem lopsided in favor of people who have
little
that blind
bit.
spot.
But I don't think it's everyone. I don't know particularly the foreign policy of Russell Brand, Rob Schneider, Corey DeAngelis, Zuby. Those are the three more libertarian. Like we do have some people up there who are not.
Schneider is Zionist, from what I understand.
Okay, I haven't seen it, but yeah, we'll move them along.
So what is your real hope for this weekend, and what you want to see people take away from it?
This is a unity movement. We need people to unify on the issues that they agree on. And Saturday, I want to use that as an opportunity to make more people agree on the anti-war position. We need to win people over to our sides. We need them to understand that the United States is not doing anyone any favors by funding war between Israel and Palestine. Lots and lots of innocent people are dying, women and children, Christians, people of all different backgrounds. It's going to be an explosive thing eventually. It is things like October 7th are going to happen over and over again unless we give these people some breathing room and stop massacring them. And same goes for, Ukraine and Russia. We need to stop furthering that conflict and enabling it. There are thousands and thousands of innocent lives that have been lost, people pushed into conscription, basically enslaved to fight in a war that they don't agree with, that have nothing to do with. They just want to be at home with their families and loved ones. They don't deserve to go to the front lines to fight in someone's corrupt war. And so there we are. That's Rage Against the War Machine. I'm super excited to be hosting it again. Nick Brana, the co-organizer, will also be there with me. And, we're ready to rage.
All right. Cool.
All righty. Well, the two events this weekend are Rage Against the War Machine on the 28th, that's a Saturday, and Rescue the Republic on the 29th. You can go to jointheresistance.org for information on those events. Those are at the Washington Monument, so between the World War II Memorial and the Washington Monument. Sunday starts at noon. I don't have Saturday start time in front of me. I apologize about that. So both events start at noon. Okay, beautiful. All right, Angela, any more plugs you want to get in, where people can find you, follow you, and keep up to date on your work?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Angela4LNC Chair. If you like the work I do, you can support me on Patreon, Substack, and Locals. You can check out the Libertarian Party at lp.org.
All right. Beautiful. Russ will see you in person this weekend, and I will be watching remotely from the home office here. Thank you so much for joining. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Please clap.